My goodness. A little bit chilly. Oh my gosh. I hope you can see me okay. I'm in a different room. The lighting's not that great, but anyhow, I hope you all are doing all right. You know the drill. Check in. Look at me. I got on 3 layers of clothes. 3 layers, and I'm in the house. Well, hello, Carolyn. How are you? Good. Hi, Liberty. How are you? Good to see you guys. I hope everybody's doing well. Happy New Year to you. If I didn't say that already, I think I did, didn't I? May not. I don't know. Anyhow, good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear you're doing fine. I'm doing all right. Hey, JB, Nashville in the house. Had a tooth extraction yesterday. That's always fun. So now my sinus is hurting right here. Oh, sore. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so listen, I hadn't been on in a bit, and I'm still a little bit early because I think I said 12:15 because I wanted to make sure I was able to get everything set up. It doesn't take a lot to set up. It's just that this was very impromptu. I literally just got out of a meeting, an international meeting that I was in, and then I thought I need to go do a video, so I just ran in here in the other room and decided to get on and touch base with you guys. So I know if you got the notification that you got it like just a few minutes ago, and that's just because I just sent out the notification that I was going to come on and talk to you all. So, all right, we've got some silver folks on here, and we got there's so much to talk about that a lot of times I don't really know where to start. So most of the time I'll have notes, right? I'll have like little bullet points that I'll put down on my phone so that I don't forget anything. But then other times, like now, when it's kind of impromptu and it's like, oh, I need to go do a video, I don't have anything written down. The one thing that was really on my mind was, and I touched on this the last time we met about this being an election year and how there may not be an election. If there is an election, it's going to be all convoluted. So, like the last one. Now, I hope that everyone by now you've had a chance to take the 30,000 foot view, as one of our founding fathers would say, take a step back and look at where we are, where we were, and where you think we might be headed. Uh, you have to understand the mindset of the people that we're dealing with, not just in this government, but in a lot of governments around the world. These people are power hungry. A lot of them are psychopathic. And I'm not, listen, when I say that, I'm not name calling, okay? I grew up in a family where mental health was the profession. My mother was in that profession. I have two sisters that were in that profession. One sister passed away, but my other sister is still in that profession. And so, I'm not in that profession other than the fact that I kind of deal with some nutsoid people here in the county every now and again. But um, when you come up in that kind of an environment, you learn how to spot certain things and to identify certain things. That doesn't make me a clinician in any way. I'm not saying that because that's not my profession. But it's just kind of like if you grew up in a house where everybody was into auto mechanics and you hung around the garage, you just got to know some things by default, not because you yourself were an expert or because you became an expert, but just because you learned how to recognize certain things just because of the environment that you came up in. Does that make sense? So, me coming up in a household where mental health was the profession, I came to know certain things. And so when I say to you that the people that are pulling the strings behind this stuff are either psychopaths or and they are being blackmailed to do so. I'm not throwing stones, folks. I'm just telling you what's really going on here. And this is why a lot of the things that we see seem to defy logic. Now, oh my God. First of all, I mentioned earlier about there might not be an election. Okay. When the sabers are rattling between nations, right? And we are in the middle of funding all these different wars. And now we have troops on the ground in other countries that are literally, fighting. We're at war. Now, Congress hasn't said that. The president hasn't declared that. But last I checked, even on a cowboy movie, you know, the bullets are flying and the arrows are flying, you're at war. So it's kind of common sense. They don't come out and say it to the public, but this is what's going on behind the scenes. Where do you think all your tax dollars been going to if you still work? So I keep going back to when you're dealing with people with this type of a mindset, you are the last thing that's on their mind. Okay, they don't care about your welfare. They don't care about the welfare of your family or your children or anything else. It's about what they are focused on and what their goal is. Now, let's just stop and think about something for a minute, because you really need to make sure that in your thought processes, you are preparing for what I call the inevitable. You cannot continue down a path like this and it not lead to some type of societal collapse. This has been a slow moving train wreck, and all it takes is one good push to get to the end of this thing, and then suddenly you either can't go vote or you have to do it in some illegal manner that they will couch in it's for your safety. You understand what I'm saying? These people will stop at absolutely nothing to get their way. Absolutely nothing. Everything and anything is on the table as long as they can have power and absolute authority over it. So, my question leading into this was, are this is like one of the greatest times in our history. And when I say great time, I'm not talking about we're having a great time. This is one of the most important times in the history of the world, not just our country, but in the history of the world. The reason that is because the United States is the greatest nation on the earth. Now, there was some debate about that a few years back. Well, what makes the nation so great? Well, we didn't get to where we are because we're not. Okay. So, empires become empires because they expand their greatness, not just their geographical influence, but their societal influence, their political influence, their financial influence, and that's what made us great. I didn't say it made us right in every situation. I said that's what made us great, a great nation. However, there are those who feel like we should not exist, and there are some reasons for that could be argued, and there are other reasons for that are just absolutely ridiculous and foolish. However, it doesn't matter if you have unelected individuals who are bent on the destruction of a state, the destruction of a city, the destruction of a nation, that are at the helm of the ship, and the people either do not have the will to stand against it or do not have the know-how to stand against it. Either way, it leads to destruction. So the question is, are you preparing for this? Because I'm looking at reports that are coming in from all over the world of different food shortages. I posted a picture that my husband took when he went to our Walmart. We have two superstores here in our city, and my husband went to, I forget what, I asked him to pick up something for me, and when he walked in, he took a picture because there was no, and I mean zero, not large, medium, small, extra large, nothing, no eggs in the store. Now, there's a reason for that because they keep killing off all the chickens, right? They're killing off all the hens. Bird flu, this, recall that, all this. There's a war on our food. There's a war against you. And I've been talking to you guys for months, at least 2 years, about preparing for these kinds of things. Now we're in the middle of a very significant deep freeze that's lasting for a little while. And depending on where you live, it could very well affect whether you have a crop or not. Depending on when you plant your seed, when you sow your seed, and all that. If we continue in this deep freeze for another 2 or 3 weeks, now it's supposed to warm up here and there, but let's just say it continues on for 3 or 4 more weeks, right? Which would not necessarily be typical depending on what part of the country you live in or depending on what country you live in. It can absolutely destroy your crops because the seed will not germinate. It's too cold. So there's another war on food. Anyway, so I have been talking to you all for a long time about, preparing for things like this. If you think back a couple of years ago when that Snowmageddon went through Texas, there were a lot of people that were caught unaware. The same thing happened, in New York. Now, these New York and, on the coast, it's not unusual to get a lot of snow. I was raised on the East Coast, right? Northeast. And we got snow. Now, not like Montana and places like that, but we did get snow and we got snow days for school when I was coming up. But the whole thing of being prepared wasn't such a big deal, at least not where I was living, because, you either had food in the house or you didn't at the time. We always had something to eat, but schools would close because, the school board, they didn't want the liability of accidents and all that. So if you got an inch, 2 inches of snow, forget it. The buses weren't running. Not in Philadelphia. The buses were not running. You wasn't going nowhere. And we would sit up and watch the ticker tape going across the bottom of the television to know whether our school was closed or not, So, but now, because there's been such a dramatic change in the weather, it's just bizarre to hear people talk about global warming and we're constantly finding ourselves in these deep freezes. I don't know about warming, but you see me, right? I got on 3 layers, 1, 2, 3, because it gets chilly. And I'm in my house and it's sitting on 72 at the thermostat and it's still a little breezy. And that's what had the new walls put in, new carpet all the way through. It's still a little bit chilly. It was like 7 degrees and a little bit below with the wind chill. So here's the thing. With the weather wars going on, with the food shortages going on, with an election coming up, this thing that's happening around the world is like, I've been saying this for a long time. It's like you're dealing with a hydra. You know what a hydra is? It's the creature that has all the heads on it. And when you cut a head off, then several more heads grow back. That's the kind of a situation that the citizens of the world are finding themselves in. The good thing is that a lot of people around the world are sick of it. I mean, you got farmers and different ones that are raising up, that are using their tractors. I know in Germany, the farmers, it's not funny, I shouldn't laugh, but the farmers, they got fed up with the whole you can't use fertilizer stuff. They loaded up their tractors and their spreaders and was driving down the streets and spraying the municipal buildings with manure. That's how they feel about what their politicians are doing to them. And but the powers that be will use intimidation and fear tactics to keep the people silenced, to keep their boot on the neck of the citizens by doing things like what you see down the street from our nation's capital, where we still have people being held as political prisoners because of something that supposedly happened that didn't happen almost 4 years ago now, you know. And so they use situations like that to put their boot on the foot of the citizens to keep them from freedom of expression or expression of speech or whatever it is that they have. Now, our country is blessed in that that is inscribed in our Bill of Rights, but not every country has that. That's why people can legitimately go to jail in other nations for that, but here it is illegitimate to imprison a person for exercising their First Amendment right. You understand what I'm saying? And so what happens? What happens when your government puts their foot on your neck like that? You have to make a decision whether you're going to bow or buckle under the tyranny of that, or if you're going to continue to exercise your rights. You have the right to medical freedom. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to eat the food that you labored for. You have the right to shelter in your home that you paid for. Those are God-given rights, right? This is not something that was a privilege that was awarded to you by your government. So anyway, don't get me on that one. Let me stop for a second and read y'all's comments. Okay, so isn't that something? Okay, I'm going to read some of these comments. So Carolyn, you know I can't pronounce your last name, but anyway, she says, may I suggest that everyone get walkie-talkies for their neighborhoods, church communities, and families? That is a good suggestion. We already have that. We've had that for a few years now. And we test them out from time to time to make sure they're still working and we can still get range on them and all that kind of stuff. But listen, folks, you're not in control of the grid, okay? You're not in control of what China may or may not do. You're not in control of what Russia may do. These people are crazy, okay? They do not care about you. They weaponize their country against another country just to overthrow another leader, right? So they look at all of us like we're just pawns in the big scheme of things. We're chess pieces that they move around, you know, and they screw around with the oil and the food and you know, all these different things that civilized societies need to function and to remain stable. These are the things that they weaponize, and it affects the people. It hurts the people, and they don't care because they are looking to overthrow another nation, to take control of their assets and all this. And we just happen to be living on the planet with these nut jobs. Okay. Anyway, yes, get a walkie-talkie. So when they take the grid down, even if it's for a day or a week or whatever, you want to be able to communicate with who it is you need to communicate with in the event that that happens. You know, for some people, if they lose power for a day or 2 days, and don't let it be summer, that is very traumatic. They could lose all of their food if they don't have a backup source of power to keep things cool, right? And so, or if they don't have a way, what about people that are on CPAP machines and things like this? Is some serious stuff, and they don't care. They're manipulating the weather. They're doing all this kind of stuff. And if you just happen to lose your life in the middle of it, well, you know, collateral damage. Yeah, that's just the way it is. That's how they see it. All right. Chick, let's see. She says, I just finished my church live right now, and he was preaching about this Then your live comes up suggested right after. I think YouTube trying to tell me something. Maybe it's God that's trying to tell you something. JB says, we are in the deep freeze here. Snow from Monday, and it won't melt. Yeah, that's the other thing. I saw a video somewhere, and I can't remember where it was. But their whole outside was covered in what looked like snow. But when she picked it up, she was like, what is this? It wasn't snow. It didn't melt. It didn't do any of that. It was crazy. I thought, Lord have mercy. Now they're talking about this other virus that they say, you know, the CDC is getting ready for this other virus that's getting ready to come out. That sounds kind of premeditated, doesn't it? How they getting ready for a virus that's going to come out? I mean, really? They got it on a clock now. It's on an alarm system, and it knows when it's supposed to hit society. Are you getting it yet that they are manipulating all of these situations, that they're doing all these simulations to see what kind of a response are they going to get from the public? Now, they didn't kill off enough of us the first time around, all right? In 2020, when they released that debacle on the whole world because they wanted to see what would happen. Well, if you're looking at decent news or staying in touch with decent YouTube or Rumble or whoever you're subscribed to, I'm telling you, they can't hide this stuff but for so long, because it is coming out that there has been an inordinate number of deaths, all these strange cancers just suddenly popping up in people, especially young people. Now, how come none of this was happening before? It's just been happening in the last 2-3 years. And the doctors that came out in the very beginning that was trying to warn you about this stuff, they put them in jail, or they took their licenses and stopped them from practicing medicine. They kicked them off the internet. They did all kinds of stuff to try to squash them from talking about it, because they knew it was a simulation. They knew it was experimental. They didn't want you to know that. So what did they use? I'm going back to the very beginning. Fear and intimidation. They put their boot on your neck and they say, if you don't do this, you're going to kill grandma. Look, I'm still here. I am a great grandma and I'm still here. Okay? Ain't nobody killed me. Now, you know, if you don't do this, and then when that didn't work, right? When they couldn't appeal to your compassionate side, some of you, they couldn't appeal to that because common sense was ruling the day. Then the threat starts. The threat started. We're not going to let you go to work. We're not going to let your kids go to school. You know, then see, and they just intensify the pressure. They intensify the pressure until you cave. Now, maybe some of you caved, maybe some of you didn't. It's a personal decision. I ain't mad at you. What I'm saying is this: if you start getting all these weird symptoms and stuff, these doctors foretold that it would be like 18 months to 2 years or so, and all these different sicknesses and things were going to start popping up in people, and it might be so far removed from when they allowed themselves to be experimented on under the fear and intimidation that these governments put on people. They won't even associate it with the decision, the medical decision that they made back then. But that's exactly what caused it. That's exactly what caused it. You know, all these respiratory issues and things that are coming up, and people that never had respiratory issues ever. All these young people in their 30s and 40s and teens dropping dead from what? What happened that this is happening now on such an enormous scale? So again, let's take the 30,000 foot view and step back and say, wait a second. Connect the dots, folks. You are intelligent people. You're either intelligent or you're very daring, or you wouldn't keep tuning in with me, because, you know, hey, so I don't care. I'm just going to keep telling the truth until they just, you know, cut me off, and then I'll be on some other channel saying the same thing. Anyway, y'all doing all right? I want to mention again about this thing with the election. It doesn't, listen, we are so far over the cliff until it doesn't matter who gets in the White House. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There has so much damage been done to this country and other countries that it could very well take a generation to straighten this out. Uh, the disappointing thing is, if we're looking to the generation that's coming behind us right now to straighten this out, and they've been polluted with indoctrination that all it has done is give them reason to be offended or be confused about their sexual identity, yeah, that's a fight they ain't going to take up. Okay, they're going to become slaves to their own stupidity. That's what's going to happen. We'll be dead and gone, and they'll be living under slavery. That's what's going to happen if their eyes do not get opened and they decide that they're going to take up the cause after we're gone. Because now, not all of them, you have some Generation X's that they got their heads on straight. That some of them have YouTube channels, and they're very intelligent young people that understand what's going on. And when I say young people, I mean they're like in their 30s, late 30s, and all that. Well, that's a young person to me because my kids are in their 40s. So there you go. But anyway, they have their heads on straight. They see what's going on. But it's a big task. It's a monumental task, and they need our help. We need their expertise when it comes to technology and things like that, but they need our wisdom because we've been around long enough to know what this country used to look like. They ain't been around that long. So I don't think for the most part, they have a good grasp on what's at stake here. Now, when I talk about what's at stake, let me say something about that. A lot of reason that we are where we are now is because of a false sense of security. I'm going to get back to us being a great nation. Our nation was so prosperous. We were like the breadbasket of the world. Our nation was so prosperous that I believe that we were born into a false sense of security. After the Great Depression, after the stock market fell in 29 and all that, it took 10 years to recover from all that craziness. Okay, I wasn't here in 29. So by the time I came along, the nation was prospering again, right? I was not born into poverty. I never, ever, I just wasn't born into poverty. I just wasn't. Now, my parents were not independently wealthy either, but I always had my own bed. I always had my own clothes. I didn't have any clothes passed down to me because I was the youngest, and out of three sisters, and one sister was 10 years older than me, so of course she couldn't pass me down nothing. And my other sister was taller than me, so she couldn't pass me down nothing. So I always had my own clothes. They were always new. And, so I didn't grow up independently wealthy, but I did not grow up straining and struggling, or like my uncle would say. My uncle said he was one of 8 kids. And he said, if we were poor, we didn't know it because everybody around us was the same way. So there you go. I said all that to say that I came up in a country that was prosperous, that education, especially in the Black community, was very important. It was pushed that you go to school. Now, who was it pushed by? It was pushed by people who had been suppressed, who had not been allowed to enter into a lot of colleges and universities and things like that because of the color of their skin, because that was the mindset of the day when they came up, right? So when our generation come behind them, then education was very important. They want you to go to university or go to a trade school or do something, but get something under your belt that would be able to sustain you in life when they passed on. That was their whole thing. We want you to be better and have it better than what we did. That was the vision of the generation that came before me, right? This is what I want for the generations coming behind us. But here's the difference. Here's the difference. These kids were pushed to go to college, go to university. They did away with most of the trade schools, but go to college, go to university. But they were pushed to go to college and university to take up degrees that were worthless. Worthless. Seriously, a degree in gender studies? You have to go to a school of higher education to figure out who you are, to study. You got to go study that. You got to listen. When I came up, it was like the birds and the bees. Okay, we didn't study it. They just told us, and there you go. But I don't know. I don't get that. But now you got these kids they've got these degrees. They spent 10 years in school studying all this crazy stuff that's absolutely worthless that they can't get a job in now. But guess what? They owe the government all this money. They owe these schools all this money, and they're pissed because they can't find a job. They're pissed. Now, look at us. And when we went to university or we went to college or when we went to trade school, we got out and we were able to actually do something. We had a skill. We had a skill. Okay. We were able to do something with our lives. But not these generations coming behind us, because a lot of their degrees are useless. Useless. Not all of them. Not all of them. But a lot of them. And it's, oh my God, I'm telling you, it's terrible. So this is who we're leaving our world to. This is who we're leaving our nation to. And this is why I keep telling people I hold meetings at different times. I hold private sessions at different times with people. And I try to tell them, you have got to find someone that you can invest in and teach them things. These kids don't have no skills, okay? Most of what they do is electronic. They don't know how to sew. They don't know how to make their own clothes. Now, I ain't no expert seamstress, but, I can measure and cut out stuff and know I got to go a little extra to make room for the stitches and, sew, sew it up. Have I had to do that in a while? No. Did I have home economics in school? Yes. You know why? Well, at the time, the thought of the day was the women would basically be at home taking care of the kids, taking care of the home, darning the socks, cooking the meals, doing all that. So they taught us all that. They taught us on a Singer sewing machine, how to read a simplicity pattern and, a Butterick. Butterick was hard, but simplicity was, did anybody go through that in school? You have home ec where you had to do the whole simplicity pattern and you had to make a shirt or whatever, or you go to home ec and you had to learn how to make veal parmesan, which sucked. I hated it. Or eggplant parmesan or something like that. We had to learn that stuff in school and we had to pass the course, right? So even if you didn't learn it at home, you learned it in school. You were going to know, you were going to have life skills. They don't have that today. And so it's up to us. We have to teach them or they ain't going to make it. I'm telling you, they're not going to make it. They don't know how to grow food. They don't know how to take care of themselves. They don't know how to do anything. And so now we're in this election cycle, and it doesn't matter who wins. If you don't know how to take care of yourself, you won't be in a world of hurt. I'm telling you, I've been blowing this trumpet for 10 years. Myself and others. I know a lady, she says she's been blowing the trumpet for 15 years. She got a 5-year jump on me, head start on me. But for 10 years, I've been looking at this and saying, we better do something. This is going downhill real quick. And it was just, it really wasn't that quick when you think about it. It was a little bit at a time, little bit at a time. And I'm watching us inch toward destruction. And I'm telling my husband, yeah, this isn't good. I'm not trying to be an alarmist or doom, gloom, whatever. I don't care what you go on and call it, black pilled, whatever. I don't care what you call it. The proof is in the pudding, okay? The proof is in the pudding. If you go to the grocery store and you paid 57 cents for a can of green beans 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and you paying $2.57 for it now. That is not a great day, okay? I'm just saying there are some people who absolutely cannot afford that. There was also a time where people that were not people of means, that did not, the working poor, people that are working their butts off, 2 jobs here, 3 jobs there, whatever, and having a hard time making ends meet because they live in these cities or these states where the taxes are just crushing. They could at one point go to a food bank and they were able to, apply for some food or get some food. Well, guess what, folks? If the trucks aren't running, if the hens aren't laying because they're dead, if there's no green beans on the shelf because the crops were destroyed, because the farmers were told they couldn't use fertilizer, right? Where are these food banks supposed to get their food from? There is none. There is none. And so here's the deal. Last year, India and China stopped exporting a lot of their goods. India said, we not sending out no more rice. We just can't do it because there's a food shortage. There's been crop failure. We've had a lot of flooding, and we've got to feed, get this, we've got to take care of our own people. Well, isn't that a novel idea? Okay, that's not what our government says. Our government says we have to take care of everybody else's people. And, good luck, Americans. That's they hate us. They absolutely hate us. And this is why I don't care whether you want to hear it or not. If you don't want to hear it, don't tune into my channel. Okay, it's just real simple. Just go down the road, find Barney or somebody else. But if you come here, I'm going to tell you what is going on, and I'm going to tell you what I think we need to be doing about it. Okay, because this is serious, folks. And when we get to November, one or two things are going to happen. I mean, it happened before. They're either going to try to absolutely destroy this election, or they're going to, as the current administration has said, let's run again and and I quote, finish the job. Those aren't my words. Those are his words. Let's finish the job. Okay. So far, you're destroying the country. So for you to say, let's finish the job, means you don't want us to have a country. You want to use us either as a dumping ground or a place to extract resources to send out all over the place. I got a report the other day in New York. This happened in New York. That was in the news. They have so many illegals in that state, so many in New York City alone, that they took the kids out of school, out of their school, and put the illegals in the school, and they're using the school as a place to shelter them because of some right to shelter act, right? And told the kids whose parents are paying taxes for them to go to school to do distance learning. Get on your computers at home because we need this space for these illegals. Now they want to moan and weep and cry about all the people that are in their state, just like all these other states that are doing it, that wanted to call the last administration a racist because they saw the common sense of we need to control the flow at the border or it's going to destroy our country. How does that make you a racist? And I guarantee you something else too. The people that said that are still beating that stupid drum ain't took in one family. They ain't took in one fighting age male into their house while they're talking about, yeah, we're a sanctuary state. We're a sanctuary city. Well, suck it up, Buttercup. You signed up for that. You ran on that. You campaigned on that. You got on the national mic or the state mic or the city mic, and you was telling all your citizens how compassionate you were. Well, here they are. Congratulations. Have fun. Have fun, because the rest of us understand that even as a single family, we can't take in the whole world. When you're living on a block, on a street, you can't take in every person that lives on your street just because all the other houses burned down. You can't do it. You might be able to take in a family, depending on how big your house is. You may be able to take in 2 or 3 people. But guess what you can't do? You can't take in your whole city into your house. So what makes people think that we could bring the whole world, Honduras, Ecuador, all these other countries, Mexico, Cuba, all these other places, Iran, Iraq, Russia, China, into one country? What makes people think that? What kind of lunacy is that? So when you hear the campaigning that's going on now saying it's going to be the biggest mass deportation in the history of the world, I'm for it. I feel sorry for these people who were lied to, told that, just go to America, we'll take care of everything. And they're not doing that. You got people in the street, in tents, in New York, and in other places where it's freezing cold because there is no more hotel room. There is no more place to put them. There's no halal food for them. They came to our country knowing that we were not a predominantly Muslim nation. And they come here and want to complain about the food. I got a solution for that. Go to where they serve that. Okay, how about that? So, oh my gosh. Anyhow, I don't know how y'all feel about all that. We are a very compassionate nation. We have always taken in immigrants. When I went to Canada, I was an immigrant. My husband is an immigrant from another nation. But guess what? We didn't wade across the Rio Grande and call him Jorge, right? He came in through the front door. We paid the fees. We filled out the paperwork. We got in line. We waited our turn. It took us 5 years altogether. That's just him. Canada wanted me to become a citizen twice. I'm like, yeah, no, because I saw what was happening in that country. And I'm like, and the people at that time had no will to fight for their rights and freedoms. None. There was no will to fight for it. And I'm sitting back looking at the apathy, the level of absolute apathy that was on the people of that nation. And I asked my husband, I said, what is wrong with these people? And he said it was bred out of us. I'm like, what? He said it was bred out of us. He said ever since Trudeau's father was prime minister, he said after the Second World War, they just started this process of breeding out of us the will to fight. He said they told us that we were no longer, we were a peacekeeping nation. Meaning that, and what they actually meant was that the people were going to keep peace with the government and not rise up against the government in any way. So now what's going on? Well, now what's going on is you've got the socialized medicine. You got people that can't get health care because they have to go on this long waiting list. You have doctors that are leaving Canada by the hundreds because they cannot work in that system where they're being told, we want you to see X amount of people per month or you don't get paid, or we want you to see X amount of people per month and don't spend too much time on them. And listen, ain't no such thing as an annual exam anymore, at least not in the province that we were in. You could not just call the doctor and say, I need an annual checkup. You could not. You have to have an issue. You have to, something has to be wrong with you. They don't even want to see you, right? Ain't no such thing as an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. No, that doesn't work there. Okay. That doesn't work there. As a matter of fact, it so doesn't work there till they do have something that they call MAID service, MAID. Now, what does that mean? That means that the medical system is so overloaded in Canada. It is so absolutely screwed up and not free. Let me tell you that. Everybody thinks it's free. I live there. It ain't free. Okay. It is so screwed up till they have what they call MAID service, MAID, which is medical assistance in dying. That's what it is. That's right. That's right. So if you're on a waiting list, let's say you need a transplant or you have some type of urgent medical need, they are associative doctors that before you get to see a doctor that may specialize in your particular issue, They will give you an out. I am, honey, if I'm lying, I'm flying. They will offer you to assist you in suicide. Yeah, that's right. They'll offer to kill you. You know, if you want to die, we'll set you up. We'll fix you up. Honest to God, God is my witness. Lord, you know I ain't lying. Guess what? We fled the country. We got out. We got out of there because it was bad, very bad. And we have friends there that, some are absolutely oblivious to what's going on. They're so busy living the high life till they don't care. And again, like I say, it depends on where you are in the building. I use the building as an example. If you're on the lower floor of the building or you live in a basement suite, yeah, already got flooded. You already knew you're underwater financially and all that. The higher up you go in the high rise, the less it may affect you, but it's coming. But these people are living in the penthouse, right? So, hey, they see the craziness. They'll just jump in a plane somewhere, go somewhere else and say, y'all sort it out. When y'all sort it out, we'll come back. It ain't affecting them yet. But when it starts dipping into their investments and all that, they'll find out. They'll find out that life's not all fun and games. There are some things that are very, very serious, and you need to take the time, take the 30,000-foot view, step back, take a look, and take stock of your life. Look at your family, look at your finances, because I'm telling you, folks, they ain't coming to help you in November. I don't care who gets in there. I don't care who gets in there. This is such a big mess till God has to sort it out. And that's the absolute truth. Now, will he use certain people as instruments to help start unraveling this mess? Yes, I believe that. I do. But I also believe that the people that have caused this damage around the world are so bent on doing what they're doing. They have a completely different vision for the earth, right? They are more concerned about saving the planet than they are saving your life, or they wouldn't be trying to eliminate food, right? They have such a completely different vision until whoever tries to reverse any of this is in danger of losing their life or a life of a family member. That's how serious this is. There were even little remarks put out about, cutting this person off somehow. Like there was nothing else left to do, because no matter what they seem to do to the last administration, they just keep winning the popularity of the people. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, people are sick of paying $2.58 for a can of green beans. They know they wasn't doing that 3 years ago, number one, and it has bled into every area of their life. They're sick of that, and they might say, yeah, I don't really like the guy, but guess what? Life was a heck of a lot better under that fool than it is under this one. So that's how they may look at that. That's one reason. And another reason might be because some people saw from the very beginning that, yeah, he ain't got the best personality in the world, but if he met me, he might not like me either. So what? He's able to get the job done, right? It's about policy. It's not about personality. It's about policy. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of policy do you want to live under? What kind of policy do you want your posterity to live under? Right? Let me ask you a question. Come here. What if they cancel the election? What if there is no election? What if they're, because they're planning for it already, What if, just, humor me. What if they decide that there's some nasty floating around in the air and some other country decides that they're going to their people the entire planet with something that was created in our lab here in the US, shipped over to China so that they could blame China for everything that was going on? Oh my goodness, don't even get me started on that one. Anyhow, what if they suspend the election because of another big nasty that gets, unleashed on the planet? Then what? Well, I'll tell you then what. Power now get to stay in power because they're going to suspend the Constitution. And when they suspend the Constitution, which they don't have any respect for now, or people wouldn't be down the street because of J6 still stuck in there with no representation. Okay, they have no respect for the Constitution, but they would absolutely spend it, and they'd make a national announcement that it's suspended. Guess what? You better know how to protect yourself, because of all the millions and millions and millions of fighting age men that have been allowed to come into this country unvetted. You don't know where they're taking these people under cover of darkness while you're sleeping and the busloads are coming in. You don't know where they're taking them. We had a situation several years back where all these kids were brought into our state, into our city, and disappeared out on our military base. We don't know to this day where those kids are or what happened to them. And guess what? We had congressmen from our state go over to Fort Sill, and they were stopped at the gate. Post command would not let them in to find out what is happening in this city, what is happening in this state. They wouldn't let them in. This is what we're fighting against. They want to do stuff under darkness that's going to ultimately affect you in the long run, and they don't want you to know what it is. You know why? Because the element of surprise is in their favor. That's why. So what am I saying to you? What I'm saying to you is you need to prepare for every eventuality. You need to prepare for every scenario that you can think of in your head that would negatively affect your family. You already know that these people are coming into the country. They're here and they're still coming. So how could that affect you? They've already shut down all these businesses in major cities that were major tourist attractions, and now there aren't any businesses. People ain't coming. They don't want to invest in that because they don't want their windows broken out. They don't want people coming into their establishment that they've poured billions of dollars into to grow, walking out with shopping carts full of stuff, and the police have been told to stand down because they've been defunded and there ain't enough of it. And it's funny how this is happening in Democrat-controlled cities and states. So that lets you know that their vision for this nation is no nation. That's their vision. That's their vision. And if you belong to that, you need to rethink what you're connected to. And let me say this to the rhinos, okay? You know, those that are Republican in name only, that are in bed with the devil, trying to destroy this nation. God's coming for you, okay? He's coming for you. And I'm going to sit back and watch. He's coming for you. He's coming for you. So, because guess what? He has the last word, not you. He does. Now, for the rest of us who are holding on to our sanity and doing everything we can to protect ourselves and our family, listen, let me ask you this. If you get a snowmageddon in your area, in your town, in your city, and the store closes down, right? Public transportation isn't running because it ain't safe for it to run because they can't get the streets plowed, right? And don't forget about the war on diesel. So that's going on too. The trucks can't run because there's not enough fuel. Whatever. How long can you remain in your home and not leave and sustain yourself? That's a real question that you need to be asking. How long can you stay in your home if you were not able to leave? How long could you stay there and sustain yourself? How long? Do you have enough water? Do you have enough food? You know, for everybody that's in your house, because you don't want to be fighting over that last chicken leg, okay? Don't even get me started on chicken. However, how long can you stay in your home? What if you need medication? Do you have enough medication? Now, here's a joke, okay? When it comes to preparedness, the Red Cross will say, make sure you have 2 to 3 days of supplies. Really? Seriously? Really? Because the last storm that took place, that was a monster, took longer than 3 days to clear up, okay? It was like 2 weeks later, and some streets still hadn't been plowed because they didn't have enough equipment, and the snow was so massive till they couldn't get to it, right? Anyway, Why is it that every time I come on here and talk to y'all, I just lose my mind? I just, I just lose it. Lord have mercy. I'm trying to get across to you the urgency of where we are. I know you done heard this. I know you probably thinking, this woman, she just keeps beating this drum. You know why? Because some people is just dumb. They don't get it. They don't understand. They are literally, I'm telling you, there are some people who are literally sitting back watching all this happen right in front of them, and they have somehow convinced themselves that it would never come to their doorstep. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you live on this planet and it's happening to all of us, it's on your doorstep already. Anyway, let me read some of y'all's comments. Oh, Lord have mercy. Hi, Judy. We got some new people on here. Nice to see you. Yep, Canada said lay down and roll over. Yep, they sure did. Always thought Canada had good health. No. Now let me tell you this about their health care. I can only speak to you about the doctors that I dealt with there. My husband's doctor had been, we've been married for, it'll be 16 years this year. He had been my husband's doctor for 20 years before I even met my husband, right? And he had not taken his blood pressure. Now, just let that hit you. Okay, I just let that hit you. That is the most bizarre thing I have ever heard of from a doctor. He had never taken his blood pressure. I was taking my husband's blood pressure, and I came to determine over a period of 2 weeks that he had moved into stage 1 hypertension. And I'm asking his doctor, because I was mad, why are you not treating him for high blood pressure? And he says, he has high blood pressure? The doctor asked me. Okay. I was so done. Yes. And had you been taking his blood pressure, you would have known that. Well, he decided to take his blood pressure. He said, oh, that is a little high. You think? Oh, that's what he says. So then he wanted to give him some kind of medication or whatever. And I'm thinking, yeah, we ain't doing that. But what I wanted him to do was his job. This man was a brilliant doctor. Brilliant doctor. We would go in his office. Sorry for the other people that were sitting in the waiting room. But sometimes we would get into these conversations and he would talk to me about these different studies that he looked at from the Mayo Clinic and all that. He says, and they did this and they come to this conclusion. He said, but I was thinking, but why? Why did this happen? And I'm thinking the fact that he was critically thinking about different symptoms or ailments that people had, and he wasn't just, pushing a pill on them, let me know this is a man who, if given the opportunity, will follow a thing to its natural course and figure out why is this patient sick? What do we need to do to bring healing to them? But because of the system that he was working in, having to crank them in and crank them out, so many a month and all this kind of stuff, he wasn't taking the time. Well, when I went, I would make him do his job. I would make him do his job. I'd start asking questions. I'd start challenging his thought processes and all that. And he told my husband, don't ever come back to this office without her. Don't come back without her. Because I made him do his job. I think it was invigorating for him. Quite honestly, I made him do his job. And so he studied both sides of medicine. He studied naturopath medicine. He studied conventional medicine. And he knew that we were more on the naturopath side, even though we would use pharmaceuticals if we absolutely had to. But if there was a natural remedy that we could use that would give us the same effect, that was our go-to. And so that is really what started me on the journey of exploring different herbal medicine and consulting with different naturopath doctors, figuring out what can we do about this, what can we do about that. And they would tell us what to do, or they would tell me what to do, or they would have a video out on their channel about it, and I would try it and it would work, and I'd be like, oh my God, that really worked. Hey, I had that in my kitchen. I didn't know that was medicine. It was something I cooked with. I didn't know it was medicine, you know? And so, how much medicine do you have? If you get a snowmageddon in your area, right? Or if they shut down the whole world again, like they did before, how long can you sustain yourself? How long? Right? I mean, nobody can do it for absolutely ever, but you better be using every available space you have because some of the stuff that you see on the shelf, you will not see on the because all these different countries, a lot of them, the last count, I think it was 11 countries, had signed on to this whole thing about eliminating fertilizer. Now, how you gonna grow anything? Or not completely, but eliminating it by 30%. 30%. 30%. 30%. How are you going to feed your people? How are you going to export anything if you are cutting your fertilizer by 30%? So I believe it was in Denmark where they told the farmers they had to cut their fertilizer and they could only use all organic stuff. Now let me tell you something. I'm not against organic because I just told you about, medication and stuff that I think should be natural. But you have to understand something. It's almost like the EV cars, the electrical vehicles. You want to push everybody to have all these electrical vehicles, have the structure in place for an alternative, right? There ain't enough stanchions around for everybody to charge their electrical vehicles, right? There ain't enough nutrient left in the soil to grow robust crops after the soil has been polluted for decades with chemicals. So it needs to be a process of restoring the soil first, right? So do both. Continue to grow food, but take plots of land where you're working on restoring the nutrients of that soil so that you can transition over to organic stuff. There's a way to do it. But no, they just went, nope, just stop the fertilizer. Well, you're going to starve people. Well, that's just the cost of doing business. That's the cost of saving the planet. It's a bunch of psychopaths. I tell you, they're crazy. Okay, let me go back to oh, Lordy. You guys, please direct people to this channel. I'm trying to help as many people as I can. I'm not employed by Google. I'm not employed by YouTube. I'm doing what I'm doing for love of people. Some people just absolutely cannot stand to hear me talk. Well, arrivederci. That's all I can tell you. All I can tell you is I hope I haunt you in your dreams because you need to hear this. You need to understand that this is not a game. Not a game. Not a game. Okay. Anyway. All right. Let me read y'all's comments. Great stuff here. Thank you. Got a scoop. Bye, Liberty. Have a great day. Yes, a lot of children have been kidnapped and forced to work in these factories and stuff. Now they've been doing this whole child labor thing around the world for a long time in India and China. That was a lot of people's big issue with Apple as far as telephones and stuff and putting together all these little pieces was forced child labor. And that's why a lot of people will not buy Apple products. But I'll tell you something else. You better look at the clothes you're wearing because there's a whole lot of kids that made that too. And you don't know. You don't know. I mean, you can walk around with no telephone and naked. You really can't. You don't know. Because unless you're there in those factories, you don't know. You just know what you're hearing, right? So there's that. I ain't walking around naked. So there you go. They killed 3 people on base in the Air Force base next to my city. I think it's connected to money laundering. It probably is. After the end of the Second World War, Canada's prime minister said Canada is changing from a war-fighting nation to a peacekeeping. Yes, thank you. I couldn't get that. That's my husband. Thank you, honey. I couldn't get that quote exact, but I knew he said something like that. Couldn't vote on that. I see you, that kid who's running things, playing. Yeah. Over the last couple of years, I've been trying to learn more about natural medicines, foraging, making tinctures, yes, salves, etc. And listen, if I can help you with that, just let me know. My email address is in the description box. So just drop me a line. And if you have a question, if I have the answer, I'll let you know. If it's not something I know about, I'll let you know that I don't either know about it. But I'd love to talk with you more about that. Jihadi Justine institute another new tax. People just say, where, where are you going to, what are you going to do? Well, what can they do? What can they do except leave the country? What can they do? If they live and they're going to continue to have food and electric or whatever else, they're going to have to live with that boot on their neck unless there's enough people of the will to change the government. That's what has to happen. And the thing is, it's like people don't know how to. That's what I started out by saying. They either don't have the will to change it or they don't know how to change it. They don't know what to do. And when I talked to you guys before about the fear and intimidation tactics that they use, that's what they did with the truckers up there. I was screaming at the top of my lungs, hold the line, Canada, hold the line, because they told the government, you can't do this. Our kids need to go back to school. We need to go back to work. We're going to starve to death. We're going to lose our businesses. And what did he do? He sent out the Queen's horsemen, because Queen Elizabeth was still alive at the time, to put their boot on the foot of the people's necks, destroyed their equipment, destroyed their trucks, pulled their licenses to operate their vehicles or run their businesses because they wanted their children back in school and because they wanted to open up their businesses. That's what he did. That's tyranny, folks. That's not, we're doing it for your safety, especially when they knew it was an experiment. They knew. These pharmaceutical companies, they know they are poisoning people. They absolutely know it. And they tell you, and they say, well, your doctor prescribed this to you because